3 in the morning. My alarm always goes off at that hour. While my siblings are sound asleep in their rooms, my daily journey starts. Breakfast for everyone has to be ready by 6. The clothes ironed, the house tidy. After breakfast, I rush off to work and only get back at night to make dinner. I'm 20 and I lead 2 lives. One at the department store office where I work full-time, and the other as the substitute mom at home. Tyler is 17, Olivia is 14, and neither has ever washed a single dish. My parents set this up so long ago that it's become our weird normal. Yesterday I found Tyler's dirty socks thrown on the living room sofa where we have guests. In the bathroom, Olivia's hair products were all over the sink, and wet towels lay on the floor. "Megan, could you tidy this up before the Hendersons come for dinner?" My mom shouted from the kitchen, where she was only making dessert. The rest of the meal was on me. "Can't Tyler or Olivia do it?" "I'm finishing up my work reports," I replied from my room, the only place in the house where I get even a little privacy. "Your brother's busy with his math homework, and Olivia has choir practice. You know how important extracurriculars are for their future." "And what about my future?" I wanted to ask, but I swallowed my words as always. I got up from my desk, put away my laptop, and went to clean up after my siblings. Again, subscribe to the channel and hit like to get more stories like this. Today, I got home from work completely exhausted. The store was a mess because of the summer sale, and I had to stay 2 extra hours. When I opened the door, the smell of pizza hit me. I smiled for a brief moment, thinking that maybe just this once I wouldn't have to cook. That smile lasted exactly 3 seconds. As soon as I stepped into the living room, I saw the disaster Tyler had left behind. Empty pizza boxes on the couch, soda spilled on the rug I'd cleaned just yesterday, and crumbs all over the floor. "Glad you're here, honey," my mom exclaimed as she came out of the kitchen. "Tyler had some friends over to watch the game and they just left. Could you clean this up? Your dad and I are going out to dinner with the Petersons in half an hour." I just stood there staring in disbelief at the chaos before me. Something inside me just broke. "Where's Tyler?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "In his room, playing video games." "Why? Why can't he clean up his own mess? Why does it always have to be me?" My mom looked at me like I'd said something absurd. "Megan, don't start that now. You know your brother has the state championship coming up and needs to relax. And what about me? I worked 10 hours today. When do I get to relax? Don't be dramatic, it's just a little cleaning." "Little cleaning?" I repeated, feeling my face burn. "It's not just that, Mom. It's everything. It's always everything. I work all day, pay my bills, chip in with the house expenses, and I'm still your maid." "Lower your tone with me, young lady," my mom snapped, arms crossed. "Everyone in this house has responsibilities." "Everyone? What responsibilities do Tyler and Olivia actually have? Tell me one single household chore that they do regularly." Her silence said more than any answer. Then she dropped the line I was expecting. "You're the oldest. You should set an example." At that moment, something crystallized inside me, a clarity I'd never felt before. "I'm leaving this house." "What?" "Don't be ridiculous, Megan. It's not a threat, Mom. It's a decision. I'm moving out." "And where are you going? With what money?" She laughed as if dealing with a childish whim. "I've got my savings, and I earn enough to rent a little place. Anything's better than being treated like a servant in my own home." 3 days later, I was unloading the last box at my new apartment, a tiny studio in the less fancy part of town. But it's all mine. A mattress on the floor, a folding table, and 2 chairs made up the entire furniture. Simple, but for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. That first night alone was strange. The silence was unsettling at first. I was used to the constant noise of a full house. But soon I realized that silence was precious. No one would knock on my door asking me to wash a shirt for the next day. No one expected me to get up early to make breakfast. I could sleep in on my day off. I set my own routine. I'd leave the dishes in the sink when I was too tired and wash them the next day with no one complaining. I made only the meals I actually wanted to eat. On my days off, I'd stay in my pajamas all day watching series, something I never got to do at home. One night, sitting on my little sofa that I'd just snagged on sale, I realized I was smiling for no real reason. It was the feeling of freedom. not having to ask for permission, not having to justify every minute of my time. The peace lasted exactly 2 weeks. Then on a Tuesday night, my phone started ringing nonstop. 15 missed calls from Mom, texts from Tyler asking how to work the washing machine, and Olivia complaining that she didn't have any clean clothes for school. When I finally answered one call, Mom sounded desperate. "Megan, this has gone too far. Your little act of rebellion has made your point. Now it's time to come back home. Things here are unsustainable." "What things, Mom? The house is a mess. Your dad had to order takeout every day this week because no one had time to cook. The laundry is piling up and the dishes. Well, I don't even want to talk about the sink. And why don't you share the chores? Tyler and Olivia are totally capable. They have school, activities, commitments. You know how hard it is. I had school too when I started handling the house, and now I work full time. That's different, Megan. You've always been more responsible, more mature." I hung up feeling that familiar sinking feeling in my stomach, the guilt they always managed to stir up in me. But this time, I took a deep breath and promised myself I wouldn't go back. The following weeks turned into a battle of resistance. My phone never stopped ringing. Every message, every call felt designed to make me feel guilty for choosing to breathe. Tyler had a fever last night. Mom left a voicemail saying, I was completely lost. "You always knew how to handle this." I almost gave in at that moment. The image of my sick brother made my heart ache. Then I remembered, Tyler is 17, not 7, and my mom, a 45-year-old adult, should be able to learn how to take care of her own kid. The next day, Dad chimed in, something that rarely happened. "Your mom is exhausted, Megan. Working and still having to take care of the house is wearing her out." The hypocrisy of that almost made me laugh. For years, I juggled work and the home all at once, and no one seemed to notice how drained I was. Now, after 2 weeks of doing what I had done for years, Mom was worn out. "Dad, there are 4 people in this house. If everyone did a little, no one would be overwhelmed." "Things don't work that way, dear. Your mom can't do everything by herself. She's not alone. There's you, Tyler, and Olivia." The silence on the other end said it all. To him, chores weren't everyone's responsibility. They were women's work, and without me, that burden fell squarely on Mom. Not because he or my siblings couldn't help, but simply because they didn't think they should. Then Olivia messaged, "Meg, I don't have any clean clothes for the choir presentation tomorrow. Mom tried to wash them but mixed the colors and now my white blouse is pink." In the past, I'd have rushed to fix the problem. Now, I took a deep breath and said, "There are plenty of YouTube tutorials on how to do laundry, Liv. I'm sure you can learn." "But I've never had to do that before," she protested. "It's never too late to start." Every conversation was exhausting, but each time I held my ground, I felt my determination grow. It wasn't just about chores, it was about respect, balance, being treated as a family member and not as a servant. Then the calls shifted from guilt to accusations. "I always knew you were selfish, Megan," Mom snapped one night. "After everything we did for you, the minute you had a chance, you abandoned your family." Those words hurt more than I care to admit. I hung up with tears in my eyes, questioning my decision. Was I really being selfish? Had I gone too far? That night, I looked around my little apartment. I remembered what it felt like to wake up without the crushing weight of endless responsibilities. I remembered how it felt just to breathe. No, I wasn't being selfish. I was finally taking care of my own life. After a month, the calls died down. Maybe they realized they couldn't manipulate me any longer. Or maybe, just maybe, which gave me hope, they were finally learning to stand on their own. I was organizing my apartment on a Sunday afternoon when my phone rang. It was Tyler, which was unusual since he normally only contacts me when he needs something specific. "Meg, can you come home today, please?" His tone sounded different, less demanding, more vulnerable. "Did something happen, Tyler?" "Not exactly. It's just that things here are really tough, and I think we need to talk. All of us." I was silent, thinking it over. Was this just another trap to lure me back into my old role? Or was there a genuine chance for a real conversation? "It's not a setup," he added, almost as if he read my mind. I promise. Just a conversation." There was something sincere in his voice. Besides, part of me felt that I needed this final confrontation, not to go back, but to nail down the new terms of our family relationship. "Okay," I finally replied. "I'll be there after lunch." On my way to my parents' house, my stomach was in knots. It had been 6 weeks since my abrupt departure. 6 weeks of building my independence, setting boundaries, and learning to put my well-being first without guilt. Was I really ready to defend this new version of myself? I parked in front of the house I grew up in and sat in the car for a few minutes, taking deep breaths. I wasn't there to cave, wasn't there to be convinced to come back. I was there to close a chapter and maybe even start a new kind of relationship with my family, a relationship built on mutual respect. When I got out, I noticed the front yard, that I used to keep immaculate, had clearly been neglected. The rose bushes needed trimming, and the lawn was taller than usual. A small thrill went through me. Clearly no one had taken responsibility for that either. Before I could ring the doorbell, the door opened. It was Tyler, with an expression I rarely saw on his face, pure embarrassment. "Hey Meg, thanks for coming." I stepped into the house that had been my prison for so many years, ready for what was coming next. The shock hit immediately. The house I'd always kept spotless was nearly unrecognizable. Piles of dirty dishes in the kitchen visible from the entrance, clothes scattered over the living room sofas, and takeout containers on the dining table. The smell of trash that needed to be taken out just filled the place. My mom appeared from the kitchen, looking older and more exhausted than I remembered. Deep bags under her eyes marked her face, and her hair, usually so neat, was haphazardly tied up. "Megan," she said in a tone mixing relief and embarrassment. "So glad you came." My dad was sitting in his usual armchair, but his face looked different, worn down, maybe even humble. Olivia came down the stairs when she heard me, wearing a t-shirt that clearly needed washing. "Sit down, honey," Mom gestured toward the sofa. "We need to talk." I sat down, keeping my back straight and my chin up. The chaotic scene confirmed what I'd always known. The whole family depended on my unrecognized work just to keep things running. "As you can see," Mom began, gesturing around, "we've been having some difficulties ever since you left." I fought the urge to say obviously. Instead, I just nodded and waited. "We never realized how much you did for us," she admitted, and I could tell how much it hurt her pride. "We tried to get organized, to share the chores, but no one knew where to start," Dad added. "None of us had any clue what it takes to run a house." Tyler, sitting on the arm of the sofa, stared at his feet. "I tried washing my clothes and ended up ruining my team uniform," he mumbled. "And when I tried cooking pasta, I nearly set the kitchen on fire." In the past, I would have felt sorry and taken responsibility to teach, fix, and care for everything. But now I saw it clearly. They never learned because they never had to. I was always there to do it all. "We want you back, Megan," Mom finally said. "We need you." That phrase, meant to make me feel important, needed, only confirmed my worst fears. They didn't miss me. They missed the servant they lost. "We realized we were unfair," Dad added, perhaps noticing my unchanging expression. "We piled too much responsibility on you while Tyler and Olivia, well, they were raised to expect that someone would serve them," I finished. "It's not really their fault. You set up this dynamic, and I let it go on for too long." Mom sighed deeply. "You're right, and we want to fix this. If you come back, things will be different. Everyone will help with the chores. Tyler already agreed to wash his own clothes, and Olivia will take on part of the cleaning." I looked at my siblings, who nodded, albeit reluctantly, but I could see right through those empty promises. In a week, maybe 2, everything would be back to how it was before. Emergencies would pop up, tests, games, appointments, and gradually the responsibility would all fall back on me. "Thanks for the offer," I said calmly, "but I'm not coming back." The looks on everyone's face ranged from surprise to indignation. The real confrontation had finally arrived. "What do you mean you're not coming back?" Mom barked first, her initially conciliatory tone quickly rising into outrage. "After all this time living here, being part of this family, you're just going to abandon us when we need you most." I took a deep breath. determined not to let them manipulate my feelings again. I'm not abandoning you. I'm choosing to live my own life as the adult I am. And you don't need me. You need to learn how to take care of yourselves and the house you share. But Megan, Dad interjected, we're a family. Families help each other. Exactly, Dad. Families help each other. Every member contributes. It's not one person doing everything while everyone else just exists. I turned to look each of them in the eye. For years, I woke up before everyone else to make breakfast. After a full day of work, I'd come home to clean, cook, and organize. I never got time for my own hobbies or friendships because every free minute was swallowed by housework. Has any of you even stopped to think about how I felt? The silence that followed was deafening. Tyler looked genuinely ashamed, Olivia confused, and my parents defensive. You never complained, Mom finally said, though her voice lacked real conviction. I did complain, many times. You either didn't listen or you listened, and decided my feelings didn't matter as much as your comfort. I got up and walked over to the window, looking at the garden I used to care for. For a moment, I remembered the teenager I once was, taking on too many responsibilities because I thought that was love, that care, that what was expected of me. I left this house to save myself, I continued, turning back to face them, to find out who I am beyond the person who serves you. And you know what I discovered? I'm capable of so much more than I ever imagined. I deserve respect. I have a right to time for me. My mom opened her mouth to protest, but I raised my hand for silence. I'm not here to fight or to accuse. I'm here to set down how our relationship is going to be from now on. I love you. You're my family. But I'm not going back to being your unpaid maid. I can visit, I can help out occasionally, like any adult would with their family of origin. But my home is now my apartment. And what about us? Olivia asked in a small voice. How will we manage? I looked at my little sister, and my heart clenched a bit. She too was caught in this dysfunctional system. You're going to learn, Liv, just like I learned when I was your age. You'll make mistakes, ruin some clothes, burn some meals, but you'll discover that you're totally capable. I stepped closer and held her hands. I'm not abandoning you. I'm giving you a chance to grow, to become independent, something I never had. Tyler, who'd been quiet until then, finally spoke. I think she's right, Mom. I especially, never really appreciated all that Megan did. I always figured it was her duty. That small admission meant more to me than he could ever know. Maybe there was hope for real change, after all. We can learn, he continued. I can take on some responsibilities. In fact, I've already started washing my own clothes. Sure, I'm ruining a few t-shirts in the process, but an involuntary smile crept onto my face. You'll get better with practice. I looked at my parents, who seemed to be processing everything that was being said. My mom's face still showed resistance, but there was something else there, perhaps the beginning of understanding. I'm willing to help with the transition, I offered. I can teach you some basic things, set up a system to split the chores fairly. But I'll only do it if everyone agrees that the responsibilities will be shared equally from now on. Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get more stories like this. 2 hours later, I left my parents' house with a lighter heart than I ever imagined possible. Our agreement wasn't easy to reach. There was resistance, tears, and even moments of high tension. But in the end, we managed to start fresh. I agreed to come by once a week for a month to help set up a system for dividing chores fairly. Everyone got specific responsibilities, suited to their age and routine. No one would be overloaded, but everyone would contribute. Mom was the hardest to convince. Years of social conditioning had made her believe that taking care of the house was mainly a woman's job, and that as a mother she should handle everything I did. I tried to help her understand that this way of thinking was exactly the problem. Mom, you work outside just as much as Dad. Why should you have a second shift at home while he relaxes? And why should I, as your daughter, automatically inherit that unfair burden? I'm not sure if she really got it, but at least she agreed to try the new system. Maybe with time, experience would teach her what my words couldn't. I drove back to my apartment as the sun began to set. The city lights slowly came on, and with them, a sense of peace I had never felt before. It wasn't just relief from having faced my family, but a deeper feeling of completeness, finally living in line with my own values and needs. My little apartment welcomed me with its comforting silence. I took off my shoes, made some tea, and sat by the window, watching life unfold outside. People coming home from work, couples walking by, the city pulsing in its steady rhythm. For the first time, I felt like I was part of that rhythm. I was no longer on the sidelines, living solely to serve everyone else's needs. I started thinking about our next family get-together. There would be challenges, no doubt. Old patterns never die easily. Tyler would probably try to dodge his responsibilities. Mom might feel the urge to take over everything once again. It would be a process, not an instant transformation. But the crucial difference was that now I had a choice. I could set boundaries. I could say no without feeling like I was betraying my family. I could put my well-being first without any guilt. The next day, I woke up to the sound of my phone. A message from Olivia read, "I made breakfast today. I burnt the toast, but the egg turned out good." Attached was a photo of a table set a bit clumsily, but clearly done with love. I smiled at the screen. Small steps. This is how real change happens. Then came a message from Tyler. "Thanks for yesterday. I never realized how much you did for us. I'm sorry." Those simple words meant more than any lengthy explanation. Maybe our family could really change. Maybe we could build something new, a healthy way forward. I put my phone away and got ready for another day of my new life. A life I chose, a life that was truly mine. As I left my apartment, I took in the fresh morning air and smiled. The future was uncertain, as always, but for the first time, I was excited to see what it would bring. Because no matter what path lay ahead, I'd walk it on my own terms. And that made all the difference. Subscribe to the channel and hit like to get more stories like this.